Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer 55551, and I do want to apologize for last week in terms of me trying to stream Ghostbusters the video game on the Nintendo Switch. Apparently what happened was my Switch sort of overheated. I'm going to have to double check, see what's going on. I may have to clean some of the dust, at least in terms of the, getting the heat out of the air and everything like that. So I'll have to double check and take a look at it. It seemed it didn't have a problem with Tears of the Kingdom when I was playing that, but Ghostbusters video game, at least on the Switch, had some issues. So I'm going to try again, this time on the Xbox Series S and everything like that. But anyway, so hopefully I can try it on Series S. I'm hoping to doing it on Friday, which is at the time of this video being recorded. So hopefully that one goes a bit better and all. But anyway, we got 5 stories to cover this week, including the possibility that Apple Arcade could be on the way out. Saber Interactive has been reported to be leaving, and Gearbox could be next in terms of leaving Embracer Group and all. Nintendo filing a lawsuit against basically an emulator and everything. Sony basically reporting cutting some staff in terms of what happened in terms of basically following that $10 billion loss in a lot of, in terms of the gaming division side of the thing, and basically a report on why it is possible why Nintendo may be targeting a March 2025 release date for their Switch successor or the Switch 2, whatever Nintendo's going to call it though. And if you're interested in where I got source of this information, links will be in the description down below, so you're watching this on YouTube. But before we get started, I like to do what I like to call the quick my 2 cents, stories that kind of caught my attention, but I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details and all. The first one has to do with a comment made by Warren Spector, who would love to do a third Epic Mickey game, but right now, given where he's doing it, makes his job impossible. For those of you who don't know, he has developed several different games, ranging from the BioShock series to the original Deus Ex. He did help create Epic Mickey when that originally came out for the Wii back in 2010, before Epic Mickey 2 made its way to the Wii, Wii U, and I think PS3 and 360, although the second one didn't do as well as I think Disney wanted, and I think at that point Disney was taking a different approach in terms of licensing their games, in terms of video games and everything like that. So it was certainly nice to hear that Epic Mickey is getting a remake or a remaster under the name Epic Mickey Rebrush though, and who knows, if this game does very well, maybe this will open the door to maybe a remake or a remaster of Epic Mickey 2, and possibly maybe an Epic Mickey 3 if Warren Spector ever gets, the chance and everything like that. We also learned that supposedly Sony is basically facing a lawsuit, and this has to do with some of their payouts and everything like that, and basically to do with the PlayStation Store and all. So yeah, we'll see how well that lawsuit goes and everything like that. We also learned that the PlayStation Portal, the so-called, the PS5 controller with a screen on it all, seemed to have became more popular than expected for Sony. So apparently they were pretty pleased with that device succeeding and all. Although I do wonder how many people who purchased that device understands that it's not necessarily like the Nintendo Switch. In other words, it's not like you can't bring it outside of your home or anything. It's more like if someone's using the TV, you want to use the PS5 and everything like that. So we'll see. So far it seems to be doing very well for Sony, at least that's what they're saying. We'll see how long it does in the long run. We're also learning that there may be a push for, basically what the storage could be for the Switch 2 or the Switch successor, depending on how you want to look at it, as there are reports coming out that the storage may be using a Samsung SD Express micro SD card, which will have supposedly 800 megabytes and everything like that. Right now, nothing's been confirmed what the storage space might be on the Switch successor and everything like that, but I do think that's one of the areas that does need to be addressed for the Switch successor. I think storage space is definitely one of them. I understand Nintendo doesn't want to go overboard with it and maybe, don't want to, make the Switch successor hugely expensive and all, but it is certainly an issue that does need to be addressed nevertheless. We also learned that Biomutant is aiming, I believe, for I think it's either April or May release date for the Nintendo Switch, which is certainly interesting. The game did get mixed response when it came out, though, and I think there were several patches that had to address some of the problems. I think on the PS4 and I think the Xbox One. I do believe it. I do believe it made it over to the Xbox Series X and S and the PS5. So it'll be interesting to see how well this game does, at least on the Nintendo Switch and everything. We also learned that Sega has recently implied that releasing Sonic Superstore next to Super Mario Bros. Wonders wasn't the smartest move on their part, and I kind of do have to agree. I mean, the problem with Sonic, though, is that although there are good Sonic games, the quality of every Sonic game isn't exactly great. And I think some of the 3D games haven't been hugely that great, although Sonic Frontiers definitely did get a better response and everything like that. And I guess maybe if this was released when the Sonic the Hedgehog movie came out, like maybe upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 3, maybe this one would have fared a bit better. But yeah, maybe releasing it close to Spider-Man 2 and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, especially a game like that coming off the heels of success of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which did very well at the box office. Maybe it wasn't a smart move to release Sonic Superstars next to Super Mario Bros. Wonders and everything like that. So, I mean, we'll see what this means going forward for Sonic, but clearly Sega may want to rethink how they release Sonic games going forward and everything like that. Speaking of Sega, we learned that they have hired a Disney veteran to lead its transmedia strategy and everything like that. So obviously Sega is definitely pushing more to use some of their IPs beyond video games, like what we saw with the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, how both of them did well at the box office and all. Whether this will lead to other IPs ranging from revival to maybe seeing them in streaming service, TV shows, or movies, we'll have to wait and see on that one. And last but not least, we have a report that Toys for Bob, the creators who did the Skylander and the Crash Bandicoot series, has announced that they are leaving Activision and will be going independent and all, which certainly is a nice thing and everything like that. But we have heard that they want to continue to have a partnership with Microsoft and everything. So obviously it doesn't sound like there's bad blood between the studios and everything like that. But if they are aiming for a partnership with Microsoft, I mean, this could open the door to the possibility that maybe they could work on a Banjo game or a Banjo-Kazooie game. We know that there are rumors going around that Microsoft may have greenlit a Banjo-Kazooie game, and the game may have changed a bit here and there. So we'll see if that truly comes out. I do wish Toy for Bots special best of luck going independent and everything like that. It'll be interesting to see what they put out once, being like an independent studio and everything like that. And in the movie and TV show part of the Quick My 2 Cents, we learned that Sony is claiming to offer subscribers appropriate value for deleting their digital libraries. This has to do with the whole situation surrounding Funimation and Crunchyroll, where they basically merged together. And apparently this also has to do with the fact that a lot of the people who purchase stuff on Funimation has recently got it all deleted and everything like that. And that has caused some controversy on Sony's side, not to mention it brings up the whole issue of, digital library. Is your digital library safe and everything like that, and the all digital future and all. Whether or not this is going to sit well with those who subscribe to Funimation or not remains to be seen going forward. But yeah, it does bring up a whole issue regarding the whole digital library and everything like that. We also learned in terms of Dune Part 2, which I'm planning to hopefully see on Saturday. Basically, it seems to be going off to a very good start on both the domestic side and even overseas in terms of box office numbers, though. We'll see how the numbers are going so far in terms of down the road, but based on the critic scores that we've been seeing and basically on the user scores, so far it seems to be getting a certified fresh from Rotten Tomato and everything like that. I would say there's a very high chance this movie will definitely do well at the box office. Now, whether it will overtake, last year's, Barbie or Oppenheimer or the whole Barbieheimer phase or everything like that, that remains to be seen at this time. But I would say odds are pretty good that Dune Part 2 will probably do well at the box office. We also learned that Jared Leto has sort of teased a bit of basically upcoming Tron Arise movie, the third entry in the Tron series, where it seems to be, at least according to what the Hollywood Reporter is pointing out, that some of it is that folks from, I think someone from the digital world enters into the real world and try to introduce, AI and everything like that. I am looking forward to seeing the third Tron movie. It won't be out until, I think, 2025. I think the original one is a classic no matter what, and I did enjoy 2010's Tron Legacy. That one was a good movie though, so I'm very curious to see how this third one is going to play out and all. And finally, last but not least, though, unfortunately we have a passing, and that is of Richard Lewis, comedian and everything like that, and one of the folks on the TV show Curb Your Enthusiasm. He recently has passed away. Most of them might have seen him from any shows here and there. I remember seeing him in the Mel Brooks 90s movie Robin Hood Men in Tights. So very unfortunate to hear his passing though, and my heart goes out to his friends, his families, and those who enjoyed Richard Lewis's whatever shows or movies that he was on and all. Okay, with the Quick My 2 Cent now done, along with the movie and TV show part of the Quick My 2 Cent, we'll get started with our first story, and this one has to do with the Switch 2 and the possible reason why, if these reports are true, why they are targeting a March 2025 release date though. Now, ever since this story broke, and supposedly from this Brazilian outlet though, a lot of other sources started to collaborate, ranging from Video Game Chronicles to Eurogamer and all, that seemed to indicate that the Nintendo Switch was aiming for a 2025 release date, not the 2024 release date that many people thought it was going to be. This also led to last week a situation where Nintendo stock kind of took a dip, although I think that we've seen Nintendo stock has dipped before in the past, and I don't think it has ruined the company or anything like that. So it remains to be seen if this one will have any kind of negative impact. I don't think that will be the case, but time will ultimately tell and all. Well, recently, a new report, at least from the Nikkei, or Nikki, if I'm saying the name correctly, apologize if I'm not, seemed to indicate the reason why basically Nintendo may have decided to delay the Nintendo Switch to a possible March 2025 release date. And a lot of this has to do with avoiding basically shortages or a situation as what we saw with the Xbox Series X and the PS5 when those systems launched, where we had the whole scalper reselling situation that kind of emerged. In an article published from Video Game Chronicles, it reads that, quote, basically it reports that claims that Switch successor's eternal delay, reported first by Video Game Chronicles and others earlier this month, was partially so that Nintendo could avoid potential hardware supplies issues. Although Nintendo had planned a launch in late 2024 for Switch 2, according to Nikkei, Nikkei, priorities was given to assure the initial inventory of the successful console and lineup of software titles at the time of its launch in an attempt to avoid widespread reselling. Nikkei said it expects the next console again to be a hybrid portable home device similar to the Switch, as reported previously by Video Game Chronicles. I kind of agree with that though. I seriously doubt Nintendo is going to abandon the console handheld hybrid concept or anything like that, given how well it's been received at this time. The publication also collaborated that the machine will have a large screen than the original Switch 6.2 inch display. Nikkei has noted that Switch 2 could yet slip beyond March 2025 depending on manufacturer and how much software is ready for launch though. I'm sorry about that. As reported earlier this month, VGC has heard from multiple sources who said Nintendo has told publishers its next console will now launch in the first quarter 2025. According to sources, third-party game companies were recently briefed on an internal delay in Nintendo's next-gen launch timing from late 2024 to early late 2024 to early the following year. One publisher source suggests the delay was so that Nintendo could prepare stronger first-party software for the console. So, is this possible that this could be true? I would say odds are it probably is and everything like that. It does sound like, as I mentioned before, Nintendo wants to try to avoid the situation we saw with the Xbox Series X and the PS5, where you had a kind of situation where some people were scalping or reselling it at outrageous prices on eBay and everything like that. So it does sound like they want to have enough ready for people to get when the system eventually launches, though. Now, whether they'll have enough or not, that remains to be seen or anything like that. Time will ultimately tell once the system launches if Nintendo can handle the launch of that system better or anything like that, though. Although it is worth pointing out that one other factor for the Xbox Series X and the PS5 outside of the scalper and reselling situation was also, COVID was happening, and that had an impact on the supply chain and everything like that. So there were other factors that kind of played into that, and unless anything major happens, it doesn't sound like the Switch 2 will be facing that kind of situation. But I do think that if this report is true, and if we do get a 2025 launch date for the Switch, I do think it kind of puts Nintendo in sort of a tough spot at the very least for 2024, as it does sort of give the impression that Nintendo may have nothing to really offer for 2024. Now, I'm not writing Nintendo off for 2024 or anything like that. I think it's too early to tell about that kind of situation. And I do want to state that Nintendo does have a history of keeping a lot of things to their chest. So it's possible they may have a couple more surprises we just don't know about or anything like that. But I don't deny 2024, if this report that the Switch successor won't be out until 2025 is true, I don't deny the fact that it's going to provide a bit of a challenge for Nintendo for 2024. Not saying it's impossible for them to overcome, but it certainly will provide some sort of challenge for them. So overall, I would say this report, if what VGC is saying is correct, I would say it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. I understand Nintendo, the reason why they are trying to do this, to try to avoid basically the storage situation and try to make sure there's enough systems available for everyone out there. Whether they can pull that off or not remains to be seen, and it will be very interesting if they can avoid the kind of launch situation we saw with Sony and Microsoft with the Xbox Series X and the PS5 and all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2. And this one has to do with, unfortunately, layoffs happening, this time at Sony and everything. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of my 2 cent video for this week. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Sony and, well, unfortunate news facing for those who work especially in the gaming side of it, though. Now, one of the things that had emerged outside of in 2023 was, while gaming certainly did very well in terms of several high-profile releases and everything like that, it also saw a massive amount of layoffs and everything. And this started to raise certain concerns and questions about going into 2024, and could we see something similar as well? And unfortunately, it does seem the case we've been seeing that. We recently saw that with Microsoft, where they lay off over like 1,000 people and something like that, though. There's also been some allegations that some people at Activision Blizzard has been let go, and something that the FTC has argued against a lawsuit against Microsoft, although Microsoft is making the claim these were already in place well before before Activision Blizzard were actually purchased and everything like that. And now recently, though, it does sound like Sony is an unfortunate situation as well. While the number isn't certainly as high, or at least as of right now, not as high as what Microsoft did, it's still not great news indeed all around. In an article from Video Game Chronicles, it reads that basically it said that, quote, PlayStation is set to lay off around 900 employees worldwide. The news was confirmed in a statement by current President Jim Ryan, who will be set to step down next month, who said the company has made the extremely hard decision to reduce its overall headcount by 8%, or about 900 people. The layoffs will include the entire closure of PlayStation Studio London. He said, quote, "These are incredibly talented people who have been part of our success, and we are very grateful for their contribution," Ryan said in the statement. "However, the industry has changed immensely, and we need to future ready ourselves to set the business for what lies ahead. We need to deliver our expectations from developers and gamers and continue to propel future technology in gaming. So we took a step back to ensure we are set up to continue bringing the best gaming experience to the community." A separate statement from Sony Entertainment also confirmed that Insomniac Games, Naughty Dog, Guerrillas, and PlayStation Technology creative and support team will also be impacted by a reduction in workforce. Ryan has also shared a company-wide email which was sent to staff to explain the plan in more details. The email stated, as I mentioned, 8% of the workforce, around 900 staff. The layoff will impact employees across all Sony Interactive Entertainment SIE regions. Several PlayStation studios will be affected. U.S. employees affected by the layoff will be told today, while the UK has been proposed that PlayStation London studio will close in its entirely. Fire Spirit Studio will see a reduction. There were reports that they were working on an online Twisted Metal game, but that game may have been canceled. There will be a reduction in various factions across, SIE and UK. And one person pointed out how 5 days ago, Jim Ryan appeared at the London studio, and then 5 days later, they've been reported that some of those folks have been let go and everything like that. On top of that, Herman Holtz, I believe, if I'm saying the name correctly though, I believe, what's his name again? Hutz has basically confirmed about the whole situation as well, and he sort of have weighed in on the situation too. And this is really, really sad about this, and I think there's a lot of factors you could take into what led to the situation. I guess a lot of people were hiring during COVID because everyone was staying home and all, and now that COVID has kind of receded to a certain degree, it's not the same level as it was during 2020 and everything like that. The situation has changed and everything. Other factors is the fact that a lot of these video games are being like more and more expensive. I mean, recently we've been hearing about EA laying off some employees and everything like that. And I mean, some of the budgets for these games are sort of getting a bit out of control, especially when it feels like a lot of these companies are asking their games to meet the expectation of like selling well beyond the 10 million or anything like that. In other words, it kind of feels like what we see with Square Enix, which tends to raise expectations way too high and everything like that. And I think one of the problems I see with Sony is that they're turning a lot of their games either live services or trying to turn it into a AAA type of experience, and that's having an impact on them. And I really think Sony needs to really reconsider their approach to this and really look at maybe doing like AA games or something like that. Like there have been talks about possibly turning Astrobot into a video game or anything like that. I think some people would like to see that, or bring back some old IPs, as I mentioned before, games like Dark Cloud, Rogue Galaxy, Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, Infamous, Resistance, Fall of Man, or SOCON Navy SEALs, or bring back, titles like maybe AA experience to kind of fill in that gap as they build up for those AAA kind of experience. I just feel like relying on those AAA only type experience is I just don't think it's that healthy in a way, though. And I also do feel, and to a certain extent, and I know some may call this controversial, some might disagree with me on this, but I do think it's definitely more of a push to really, for a lot of these employees, especially being impacted by being laid off, while a lot of these executives don't have to worry about being in trouble or anything like that, is I do think it is worth considering the idea of looking at unionization as well. I mean, we've been seeing a push for it as lately. We've been seeing it with Bethesda, video game tasters at Raven Software and everything like that. So I do think I will say I am definitely more open to a lot of these folks unionizing than I was, in the past. Again, it's got to be their decision and their call, but I think it is something to take into consideration as well. But in either case, a lot of it is that they need to reevaluate, development for these games and the amount of money that they're being spent on. I will say it has gotten ballooned and has gotten way out of control to a certain extent. On top of that, the only company, at least as far as I'm aware of, that hasn't been impacted by this at this time has been Nintendo. We really haven't heard any layoffs or anything like that going on at their studios or their company at this moment, and they seem to be doing pretty well for now and all. So I really think there needs to be a reevaluation in terms of how much money is being spent on a lot of these games, because it is ridiculous that when a game that despite making $10 million flop and a lot of these people have to be let go, I mean it's absolutely it's completely ridiculous. So overall, very disappointed to hear some of these some of these employees being let go, 900 of them, and I think it does highlight there needs to be a major overhaul in the gaming industry in terms of not only hiring these folks, but also trying to get costs under control, especially when some of these games are, the budget for these is just ballooning and just getting really, really out of control in general. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get to part 3, and this one has to do with basically Nintendo suing on this emulator site called Yuzu, and it's Nintendo being Nintendo and giving their history of being very protective of their IP. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of my 2 cent video for this week. Excuse me. And for this one, I do want to talk about, it's basically Nintendo's latest lawsuit. This time they're going after an emulator by the name of Yuzu, if I'm saying the name correctly. Now, one of the things that Nintendo is very much notorious for is being extremely protective of their IPs. Sometimes I think they're in the right in some cases. Sometimes I think they can go a bit overboard and they can be extremely wrong. One example where I would agree with Nintendo would be the whole situation with the whole Soldier console with rapper Soulja Boy and everything like that. I do have to say in this situation, I do kind of have to side with Nintendo over the fact that the Soldier console was basically taking their IPs without their permission, and they were selling it in, what looks like one of those knockoff consoles and everything like that. On the other hand, I do acknowledge that Nintendo can go a bit overboard when it comes to being overprotective of their IP. One of the examples I could think of was the situation surrounding Did You Know Gaming, where basically they were talking about the history of a canceled retro studio game that would be set in Hyrule and everything like that. And Nintendo basically, I believe, filed ordered the video or a copyright strike on it, and they got, basically there was backlash against Nintendo doing that and everything. So I tend to think that there are some cases I think Nintendo can be right and they can be wrong on some of the situation regarding their IPs. But this one has to do with basically now with the whole situation surrounding emulators or emulation and everything like that. Now, my stance when it comes to emulators is that I'm kind of mixed on it to a certain extent. I can see the benefit of it, but I can see why there could be some concerns for it though. In terms of game preservation and everything like that, I definitely could see the argument in favor of emulations and everything, as these can be extremely helpful to help preserve games and everything, since this is also one of the issues the game industry has been facing, which is game preservation and everything like that. But on the other hand, there have been situations where we've seen some emulations, some, again, not all of them, but some have maybe gone a little too far in terms of selling copies of games that are planning to come out but aren't even out yet. One of the biggest controversies was when it was reported that Kotaku was telling people how they could emulate and download, Metroid Dread before it came out. This led to basically some criticism towards Kotaku and basically leaving Nintendo to blacklist them and all, which, again, very mixed on that situation. I understand Nintendo's reason. I just feel like we've worried that could lead to a situation where other companies can retaliate against these gaming outlets just because they either write something or say something that they don't like or anything. It's very much a gray area, and this one certainly is a gray area and all. But anyway, in an article from Nintendo Life, it reads that, quote, as highlighted by Stephen Toti, if I'm saying the name correctly, of Game Files, the Japanese video game giant known for the hits like Super Mario and Zelda accused the Yuzu creators of unlawfully circumventing Nintendo software encryption and facility piracy. The Yuzu team accuses Switch games from a hacked unit and made copies of a game which Nintendo believes is a DMCA and copyright violation. The game publisher and developer also used last year's Switch release, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, as a supposed example of damages, noting how 1 million copies of the games were downloaded before its official launch, with the support of Yuzu's Patreon doubling during the same period. Nintendo now wants a shutdown of the emulator, though. And in another article, they asked about basically how strong of a case does Nintendo have. There are basically there are basically certain questions about it. One come from a lawyer by the name of a digital media specialist, John Lorderman. Basically says, quote, Nintendo is still basically taking the position that emulators itself is unlawful, though that's not the core legal theory in this case and everything like that. He's also mentioned some comments of whether Yuzu can get tagged with culmination simply by providing instructions and guidance, and all the rest of it is, I think, the core issue in this case. He also brought up, I think, the article, which I'll have a link in the description. You could check it out. To be exact, he says, while I don't think this is a slam dunk, few lawsuits are, I wouldn't want to be on the other end of this lawsuit either. So it's from, I think, Ars Technica. I'll have a link in the description. You could check it out yourself. But again, it's going to be really interesting to see how far Nintendo is willing to go on this one, though. I mean, again, like I said, I am very mixed on emulators. I definitely see the benefit of it. As I mentioned before, I think game preservation is one of those benefits, though. So I definitely do see that. But at the same time, as I mentioned with the situation with Kotaku and Metroid Dread, there is somewhat of a downside to it. So it's going to be really interesting to see how far this case goes and whether or not Nintendo has a very strong case against this, basically this emulation place or not, though. So we'll have to wait and see how this lawsuit all plays out, or whether or not it's settled out of court or anything like that. So overall, again, Nintendo is known for being very protective of their IPs, and it doesn't surprise me that they're going after this emulation place and everything. Whether or not they have a strong enough case against this Yuzu emulator or not, that, however, remains to be seen. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 4, and this one has to do with Saber Interactive, where apparently they are planning to leave Embracer Group. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 4 of my 2 cent video for this week. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Saber Interactive, particularly them leaving Embracer Group. Now, ever since, I believe it was last year, ever since that whole, I think it was like a $1 billion deal with a firm in Saudi Arabia fell apart, Embracer Group has kind of been sort of like imploding in a certain degree, that all that money was basically lost on them. I mean, originally this was a studio where the idea was to revive THQ and turn it under THQ Nordic, but at the same time they went on a shopping spree buying all these studios, even trying to revive Time Splitter and Free Radical. But ever since then, that whole thing just really has had a negative impact and has made Embracer Group sort of the villain lately, though. They had to lay off staff, they had to cut some studios down and everything like that to try to make up for that money and everything like that. And apparently it seems that Saber Interactive, rather than being shut down, seems to be being let go. Furthermore, it does seem to indicate that Gearbox Software could be the next studio to leave Embracer Group and everything like that. In an article from Nintendo Life, it reads that that Saber Interactive will reportedly be splitting from Embracer in a deal worth $500 million. As reported by Bloomberg, the deal will result in Saber Interactive becoming a privately owned company with around 3,500 employees. It's reported that Saber itself will continue to work on the remake of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which changed hands from its own subsidiary, Asperity. From what I've been hearing, from what the reports about that game, is that it hasn't been canceled, but it does sound like it seems like the workforce on that one is very, very small, to say the least. Asperity is just one of many teams that fall under Saber Interactive's umbrella, and it's said that the deal will allow Saber to bring along several of Embracer's subsidies. It's not known what these are or whether Saber has a choice in which ones to keep hold of, but it's certainly a significant step in Embracer's ongoing effort to cut costs. Other companies that come under Saber Interactive include 3D Realm, 4A Games, Sandbox Strategy, Tuxedo Labs, Zen Studios, and more. Embracer Group has gained a great deal of backlash in its effort to downsize with the company, shutting down Free Radical, canceling an unannounced Deus Ex game, and laying off a significant number of staff members from the likes of Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, Beamdog, and more. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, it's been reported that basically Gearbox could be closer than ever to be sold off, though. According to Video Game Chronicles, it reads, sources have told Kotaku that Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford held a town hall meeting with staff this week and told them that a decision has been made regarding the studio future, with more information to be shared in March. According to the report, Pitchford has been telling staff for months that Gearbox 3 options were to stay with Embracer, get sold to another company, or buy itself out and become independent. No word on what decision has been made on that. However, it's been reported last month that Take-Two CEO refused to be drawn into whether it will be interested in acquiring Gearbox given its long-term publishing deal with Gearbox for the Borderlands franchise and other titles. This is what they had to say, saying, quote, "We have a long-term relationship with Gearbox of which we're very proud of," the CEO of Take-Two said at the time. "They're a wonderful company. They deliver for us, not just for Borderlands, but also Tiny Tina Wonderlands and other titles, and I have no doubt to continue to be successful in the future. We're thrilled to have a long-term publishing relationship on these titles. The publishing relationship exists without regards to the ultimate owner of Gearbox, but with regards to our potential interests, we don't tend to speculate on potential transactions." Although I will state for the record that I wouldn't rule out the possibility Take-Two Interactive could buy Gearbox Software and Gearbox Publishing. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. But in either case, though, I mean, to me, this sounds more like a positive end to sort of a bad situation where we're seeing a lot of layoffs to basically some studios being shut, though. So this certainly seems to be a bit more positive, especially for Saber Interactive. What they decide to do from there is going to be extremely interested, though. But yeah, right now, Embracer Group doesn't have the best, image at this time. As far as Gearbox goes, it'll be interesting to see if they get bought out or decide to become independents, like what we recently saw with Toys for Bob. However, I wouldn't rule out the possibility that Take-Two could sweep them up, considering that they've developed the Borderlands and Tiny Tina Wonderland series and all. So overall, in the situation where we're seeing a lot of layoffs in the industry, it's nice to see a situation with Saber Interactive and even Gearbox to some extent. The fact that they're not shutting down or laying off employees. Instead, it looks like they're going to be leaving Embracer Group and everything like that and all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to our fifth and final part, and this one has to do with the possibility that there are some who are believing that Apple Arcade may be shutting down for good and everything like that. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our fifth and final part of our My 2 Cent video. And for this one, we're going to be talking about Apple Arcade, or as some developers feel like it's on its way out and everything like that. Now, Apple Arcade was basically, Apple's attempt to do a different approach to a lot of their games that we've seen on, like smartphones and tablets. Up to this point, they've been like free to play or gacha games and everything like that. These are basically, like premium games to a certain extent, where you subscribe and you get access to a lot of these games. Some of them were like, I think, Oceanhorn 2, to Fantasian, if I'm saying the name correctly, to even, I think, one from Platinum, until unfortunately got pulled from the service, though. But lately, it's been sort of quiet for Apple Arcade ever since, its original launch around 2019. You might hear a certain game here and there, but the service has been very, very quiet over the years. Well, a new report from Mobile Gaming seemed to indicate that there are signs indicating that they may be on the way out and everything like that, at least according to what some developers are saying. But a quick summary of it, the report from GameIndustry.biz says this, though. Game devs have said Apple Arcade payout has been on the decline for years. Apple Arcade game developers say Apple payout has decreased since 2020, according to a MobileGame.biz report. Some of the developer sources the outlet spoke to said upfront payments were very generous in 2019 during the service launch, but soon took a turn for the worse and have continued to decline since. Developers add upfront fees for a new arcade game has been cut by Apple. The report also noticed that in 2021, Apple canceled an unknown number of projects as it focused more on family-friendly titles based on existing IPs. Additionally, game makers know that Apple has not clarified its business strategy for the service. One studio boss told us after months of glowing feedback on one particular game, the arcade team suddenly withdrew its interest in the title, citing a change in strategy, said MobileGaming.biz. When the developers asked for feedback, offered to reduce the budget and retool the game to better fit Apple's need, the arcade team simply stopped responding to the emails. This has led to game developers being concerned about the direction of the platform. One developer said there was a smell of death regarding the future of the subscription service. So yeah, I mean, it does seem to indicate that Apple's been kind of, to a certain extent, leaning away from Apple Arcade. We've been seeing them push more on, I think it's ranging from a VR set to basically pushing, like Apple TV with, their own shows and everything. So it seems that Apple has been sounds like they are moving away from it. At least that's what the report is claiming. I also think a lot of it is focusing on just family-friendly games. I do think that kind of limits the amount of audience that you want to get and everything like that. I'm not saying you can't have family-friendly games, but just limiting it to that, I just think doesn't help Apple Arcade or anything like that. One thing that the Mobile Gaming.biz article did bring up is that the success of basically the Grand Theft Auto games on Netflix Gaming and how well that did might prompt Apple to do maybe another reboot of Apple Arcade, which they've done several reboots before several times. So Apple Arcade is in sort of a very odd place and everything like that. I mean, the concept doesn't sound so bad, but I mean, I do feel if Netflix gaming starts to take off and everything like that, and they seem to be doing pretty well, I mean, at least with Netflix, where it is going right now, especially since the Grand Theft Auto trilogy has come onto that service and seemed to have gotten a better response than the awful definitive edition that was released on consoles and everything like that. It might prompt them, Apple Arcade, to maybe reconsider and try to do more efforts into it, or take the approach what we saw what Google did with Google Stadia, realizing that it's way too much money and just, you know, cut their losses with it, to be exact. I mean, it is a bit unfortunate. There were some neat games on Apple Arcade, but it's really been very quiet on that service, and I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see how long it lasts or everything like that. And Apple kind of staying silent about it does kind of give the impression it's on its way out. Again, we still have to hear what Apple has to say, but yeah, I mean, I can see why some developers may be concerned, and I think Apple needs to do a better job responding to this. Otherwise, I could see the potential this, you know, like being killed off and everything like that. So overall, very much uncertain future for Apple Arcade. It remains to be seen if Apple will still have Apple Arcade stick around, or with some of the other stuff they've been doing, like the Apple credit card to Apple TV, you know, Apple TV and some of the original shows. I do wonder if it's only a matter of time before they, you know, kill off Apple Arcade or anything like that at all. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about this report about Switch 2's target March 2025 date to avoid, you know, shortage of the system? Do you think this would be a smart move on Nintendo's part of it? Or do you think it would be better to release the system in 2024? And if this is a smart move, do you think they will be able to avoid the situation we saw with the Xbox Series X and the PS5 and that whole scalper situation and all? What are your thoughts about this report about the layoffs at Sony, though? Do you think this is definitely bad news? Do you think this highlights maybe they're spending way too much to develop these narrative-driven type of games? Or do you think they're, you know, they're focusing way too much on live services? Do you think this should maybe consider doing more like AA games instead, or have them fill in the gap for those AAA type of experience? What are your thoughts about this Nintendo lawsuit against this emulator company like Yuzu? Do you think Nintendo has a strong case against this emulator company, or do you think this emulator company has the ability to defend themselves against whatever Nintendo is throwing at them? What are your thoughts about Saber Interactive leaving Embracer Group? Do you think this is a good move on Saber Interactive's part, though? Do you think we could see other studios leave Embracer Group in any way? Do you think it's wise for Gearbox to go independent or be bought out in any way? And what are your thoughts about Apple Arcade? Do you think Apple Arcade is on its way out? Or do you think that Apple might try to reboot Apple Arcade and try to see if they can make it more of a success and all? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for any notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal me, Patreon, or Steam Labs. Links will be in the description of this video. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye.